Welcome, friends, to part 2 in my 3-part Modern Warfare beta review series. This section is going to be covering the bad. The first video was what I liked about it, the good. And then a third video, which will be coming tomorrow, is about the ugly, or the extremely bad. I will have links to both of those in the description. If you want to see those, just go ahead and drop down there and you'll be able to find the other videos as well. Now let's get into the bad. When you unlock attachments for a gun, it is not obvious at all when you go back into the gunsmith what attachment you unlocked or where you can find it. So in Black Ops 4, for example, the last Call of Duty, when you wanted to start equipping or changing your attachments for your gun, they were all found within one menu. You had an optics field, and then when you pressed that, you looked at all available optics, which is how it works in Modern Warfare. But then, when you looked at every other type of attachment, whether it be extended mags, rapid fire, quick draw, these were all found in a second field. So you could see every other type of attachment that is available or locked within one big menu pool at one time. Now, in Modern Warfare, you have to go into up to like 6 or 7 different individual fields within the menu to see which attachments there are. And when I unlocked a new attachment, for example, I would go to the gunsmith, and then I would have to click on muzzle and see if it was a muzzle that I unlocked. Nope, okay, let me back out of that menu, click on underbarrel. Is it there? Nope. Let me back out, etc. And that was really fucking annoying because I would level up a gun, whatever, 4 times in one match. Or even if I only leveled it up once, I'd have to go through every menu because there isn't even like an indicator light telling you that, hey, there's new attachments under this field. So I'm not entirely sure how this could be fixed. An indicator light would be great, but even with that, I don't think it would be quite enough because it's still annoying having to go in and out of all of these little sub-menus to start changing your attachments. Next, the ping is fucking fake news. Every lobby I was in, I had between, according to the game, I had between 7 and like 25 milliseconds of ping, and common sense and my experience in these lobbies very clearly told me that that was fucking fake news. Completely untrue. First of all, I don't know where a server would have to be located for me to have 7 milliseconds of ping. And as far as I know, there isn't a Modern Warfare server in my living room. So, telling me I have 7 milliseconds of ping is just insulting, first of all. And even in those lobbies where I had, say, 25 or 30 milliseconds of ping, that was certainly not the case either. I would be shot in a building behind the wall, and then I'd look at a kill cam, and on his screen, I haven't even entered the doorway yet. So the ping indicator and or the netcode needs to be changed. Either my ping needs to display what my actual ping is, or even better, they fix the netcode or the server locations or something so that my ping not only says that it's 30 milliseconds, but it actually is 30 milliseconds. Next is friendly nameplates disappearing when you're flashed. I don't know what the design choice was here, but it's a shitty one. There were many times where I would be flashed, like playing headquarters, for example, when I'm defending the headquarters that we've captured, and I would get flashed, and then my teammates would like run into the building, and I don't know if they're teammates or enemies, so I just start spraying my gun. But they were teammates, so they don't take any damage, and now all the enemies know exactly where I am because I just made a whole to-do with my weapon. So you can keep me just as flashed and just as unable to see and still display friendly nameplates. Next up, related to the gunsmith, the descriptions and indicators of what some attachments do were in direct contradiction. So, for example, we have an image here with the lightweight suppressor. So lightweight aluminum suppressor sacrifices range for stealth and agility. Yet in the pros, it says it increases damage range. This is probably just a mistake, and I'm sure that this will be fixed, but there were more than just this one example that I was able to find in the gunsmith, where an attachment said it did something, and it did not do that thing. So those discrepancies need to be fixed. In addition, the little stat bars that have what looks to be like 1,000 different placements that a bar could be located at, these need to be just completely reworked. Maybe a 1 to 100 system, so I can see, okay, the fire rate of this gun is 10 points lower than the fire rate of that gun. These bars are very inaccurate, and even if they weren't inaccurate, it's virtually impossible to distinguish the stats of one gun from another at a glance when you have these amorphous bars indicating things like damage, accuracy, fire rate. It would be much easier to compare weapons if you, instead of using these bars, added a numerical value. So the M4 has a fire rate of 72, and then the Odin has a fire rate of 40. It's very easy to compare those two numbers. Whereas, as it stands now, you just kind of say, like, okay, well, that bar looks, I don't know, fucking 10% longer. It's impossible to tell, and this should be changed. As I said earlier, I really like the movement in this game, and I think it's very fluid, with one very startling example to the contrary, and that is mantling, or climbing over shit, or climbing on top of shit. It is terrible. It's completely unintuitive. You have to be standing in the perfect, exact spot for the mantle to work. It seems like sometimes you have to have like a running start to mantle something, and other times you don't. But this isn't obvious at all from the user interface, because I can be standing next to some pallet, and it says, okay, press spacebar to mantle, but it doesn't actually work. You have to get a running start for that mantle to take place. So remove the UI element that says I can just stand there and mantle if I actually can't. But beyond that, the mantling in and of itself is just very clunky. Many times I want to mantle and I just can't, unless, again, I'm standing in the exact right spot. I mean, I felt like I was playing fucking a beta release of Assassin's Creed with how clunky and unintuitive this climbing/mantling system worked, and that really needs to be smoothed out quite a bit. Next up, the hipfire. The hipfire is way too fucking accurate in this game. You can hipfire laser people with wanton disregard, and you have some serious hipfire range, and that is without any of the laser sight attachments. With the laser sight attachments, Jesus Christ, there's no reason to ADS. The hipfire is just absurdly way too strong, and it needs to be significantly toned down. It's the kind of thing that totally disincentivizes actually aiming your weapon, when you can just aim in someone's general direction, never ADS, and just spray, and you'll almost certainly get the kill, faster than anyone who would actually, God forbid, try to aim at you and then shoot you in a first-person shooter game. Up next, it seems like the aim assist, from my perspective, is way too strong. Now, I know as a PC player, I'm like 95% sure I can disable crossplay, so this maybe isn't necessarily an issue, but I think if you're going to support crossplay, you also need to make the game competitive and relatively balanced between PC players and console players. Now, I understand consoles have the inherent disadvantage of being locked at 60 hertz / 60 frames and being locked at a tiny shit FOV. Imagine being a console player, by the way. But these are more than compensated for with how strong the aim assist is in console. Like, every single time I would get completely beamed by someone, I just knew they were on a console, judging by the kill cam and how easily they snapped onto me and how insanely sticky their aim was. This aim assist needs to be toned down if we're going to have any crossplay at all. And lastly, one of my biggest complaints in the bad section is that the sprint out time is too slow. So there are many mechanics that reward camping in this game, and trust me, we're going to fucking get to those. But the first of those that I'm going to talk about is the sprint out time. If you're double sprinting and then you want to shoot at someone, from double sprint straight to shooting your gun, it takes forever. And honestly, That's how it should be for double sprint. But when you're doing a regular sprint, the sprint out time is too burdensome. And having such a slow sprint out time really disincentivizes running and gunning, among, again, many other mechanics in this game. But if you're sprinting into someone and that person is either standing still or walking, they already have the advantage of kind of pre-aiming where you're coming from, just by virtue of the fact that they're standing still or moving very slowly. But then they also have this additional benefit of having an extra, it seems like 350 milliseconds because of your sprint out timer. This is too great of an impediment on players who want to play aggressively, because what it forces them to do is essentially sprint to a corner and then stop sprinting, and then turn the corner, and then start sprinting again, and then 2 seconds later when they come to another corner, stop sprinting, and then turn the corner. It slows down the game way too much, and the game ceases to feel like Call of Duty. And it rewards one playstyle so much more than another playstyle that what it translates to is there are virtually no pros to running and gunning. There are only cons. Whereas in virtually every other Call of Duty, running and gunning had pros and cons, and camping also had pros and cons. But as it stands now, there are virtually no pros to running and gunning. So what you've effectively done is removed one of essentially two playstyles from being viable. And that's going to translate into a very monotonous multiplayer experience when you only have one playstyle, which is to say, everyone's camping. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you hated it and you disagree with everything I just said, be sure to smash that dislike button. But if you liked it, consider pressing that thumbs up. That would be very kind of you. I've got one more video in this little part 3 series of the Modern Warfare beta review, and that's going to be what I called the ugly. These are the things that are particularly broken with this game, at least as far as the beta was concerned. The things that I found completely game-breaking, completely fun-sucking, and just awful. The very bad, super bad section of the review, if you will. So if you don't want to miss that, go ahead and subscribe. In addition to having that video queued up for you probably tomorrow, I will continue making Call of Duty multiplayer videos on this channel. I'm only focused on Call of Duty multiplayer from the PC perspective, so if you want to stay apprised on all things related to that, consider subscribing. And lastly, I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if my analysis is spot on or totally wrong, where you agree, where you disagree. I also stream every day on Twitch at twitch.tv/Razanon. It's the same name as my YouTube channel name. You can catch me there. I'm super interactive with chat, so if you happen to catch me live, I would love to talk to you. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my final part in this 3-part series, and as always, stay humble. Oops.